UFC Rio goes down this weekend, and in this video I'm going to go through the entire card and give you my full card predictions and betting breakdown for every single fight. Before we get into it, make sure you click the like button and subscribe to the channel because it keeps me motivated to make more videos if the channel is growing. And you know I'm motivated to keep putting money in your pocket because the channel has been growing. We're getting a lot of likes and a lot of subscribers, so please continue that. And we're going to get straight into the first fight of the night, and it is Saimon Oliveira taking on Luan Lacerda. So Luan Lacerda coming into this fight with a record of 12 wins, 3 losses. Saimon Oliveira, on the other hand, coming into this fight with a record of 18 wins and 6 losses. Currently, they got Luan Lacerda as the -245 favorite with the underdog price tag on Saimon Oliveira coming back at +210. So this is a good fight, lads. One that I'm interested in to some degree, just because I do think it's going to be a bit of a banger. I think it ends inside the distance. So, you know, I feel like we'll start off with some violence to start off the card. But these guys, I don't know how longer they're going to be in the UFC. I mean, they're 0-5 in the promotion between the two of them. So Saimon Oliveira is currently 0-3. Losing his debut to Tony Gravely in a fight that he performed pretty well in. Had a lot of submission attempts on Tony Gravely, but he did end up losing that fight. Was basically wrestled for the majority of it. He ended up losing via decision. In his second fight, it was a very bad performance against Daniel Marcos. Ended up getting finished in the second round. And in his very last fight, he got finished in the first round by David Martinez. You know, that's no blemish on his record. David Martinez just beat Rob Font. He's a top 5 guy now, so you know, it's not the end of the world, but his performances before that wasn't the best. Luan Lacerda, on the other hand, again, 0-2 in the UFC, but I genuinely believe he should be 1-1. I believe that he won his debut against Cody Stamann, but he ended up losing a fight via decision. You know, I think that was kind of a poor decision by the judges, although it was a very close fight. It could have gone either way, you know, and I did bet on Luan Lacerda, so maybe I'm biased, as we know. When you bet on a guy, oftentimes you are biased, but I've watched that fight back many years after the fight, as recent as 1 week ago, and I still hold the belief that Luan Lacerda, you know, could have won that fight. Unfortunately, he lost, and then in his next fight, he lost against Damon Blackshear. Blackshear's a very good fighter, you know. Blackshear's one of the top 15, top 20 fighters in the entire division, so it is what it is that he lost that fight. It's not the end of the world. I think he should be 1-1, and I think he's shown better performances than his opponent here, Saimon Oliveira. You know, Saimon Oliveira comes into this fight, and for the majority of his fights, man, the guy's just spinning back fist, spinning elbow, big janky movements, some grappling on display, but nothing special. And I don't think his game is very well put together. Even his Dana White's Contender Series fight, where he got into the UFC, it wasn't a convincing performance. It's a split decision against Jose Alde, and it was a very close fight. He did a lot of spinning shit in that fight, and I don't know, I just don't feel like he has a very well-rounded game for MMA. Luan Lacerda, on the other hand, his game is a lot more put together. You know, he's got good body kicks, good leg kicks, good head kicks, good kicks in general. You know, pretty fast with some of his strikes, even with his hands. But he does his real work in the grappling, you know. So 6 fights leading up to his debut in the UFC were all won by him via submission. So this guy's a grappler, you know, a very good grappler as well. You know, he'll roll for heel hooks, which is not great. It got him in trouble against Damon Blackshear, rolled for a leg lock, ended up getting pounded out by there. That was just very bad IQ. I mean, he just kept rolling for leg locks in that fight, and, you know, eventually got knocked out because of it. But at the end of the day, that could work on some opponents, because I do think he has a sneaky leg lock game. It's just that Damon Blackshear is a very high-level grappler, so you ain't really going to get him caught in any leg lock or anything like that. So I feel like he's had, you know, a bad matchup in his last fight, and the fight before that, it was, you know, a tough matchup as well, but he still won. So I kind of like Luan Lacerda to win this one. He's -245 favorite, so I can't really do business with him at that price tag, and the reason is just because he has dropped the ball in his first 2 UFC fights. He's 0-2 in the UFC, but to be honest, man, I think he's got better wins than Saimon Oliveira. I think he's got better performances in the UFC than Saimon Oliveira, and I think he should be 1-1. So honestly, -245 might not even be that bad. He is coming into this fight off a layoff, which I don't like, you know, because we never know how fighters are going to perform off a layoff. Sometimes they drop the ball because they've been away for a long time and they have ring rust and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a little bit dodgy getting involved at -245. I will probably pass on it, but I do think there's some value potentially. I like Luan to get it done inside the distance. You know, his inside the distance prop is -180, so there's absolutely no value on that. I can't play that at all. You know, I was interested to see that the under 1.5 rounds is -120. Sorry, the under 1.5 rounds is +120, but then it doesn't go to decisions -400. So the bookies are saying that they believe this fight is going to end in the second half of the fight way more often than not, which I don't necessarily agree with, like at least not compared to the odds. I think it's probably going to be finished in round 2, but I don't think it should be that much of a disparity between the under 1.5 and the doesn't go to decision. But yeah, I'll pick Luan Lacerda in this fight. I'll pick Luan Lacerda via submission. Next up, we have Julia Polastri taking on Karolina Kowalkiewicz. Julia Polastri has a record of 13 wins, 5 losses. Karolina Kowalkiewicz has a veteran MMA record at this point, 16 wins, 9 losses. Currently, they have Julia Polastri as the big favorite, minus 450, with the underdog price tag on Karolina Kowalkiewicz coming back at plus 350. So yeah, I side with the big favorite in this fight, boys. I side with Julia Polastri. I mean, at the end of the day, man, Karolina Kowalkiewicz is almost 40 years of age. She's 39 years of age now, boys. I don't know when her birthday is, but let's have a scroll down here. Wow. So her birthday is next week. She turns 40 next week. She ain't beating Julia Polastri, man. Julia Polastri is 27 years of age, still improving, still getting better. I mean, at the end of the day, man, Karolina Kowalkiewicz probably hasn't really improved in 5-10 years. I mean, she fought for a world title 9 years ago. She fought Joanna Jędrzejczyk in 2016 for the UFC strawweight title. That is 9 years ago. That was in November, by the way. We're almost in November, so you're talking almost 9 years to the day she fought for a UFC world title. You're talking almost 1 week to the day she turns 40 years old. There's no way she's winning this fight, man. The way to beat Julia Polastri is to be a much better striker than her, which most people are not, like Josephine Knutson was, right? And she actually won that by a reversal. Or to be a much better wrestler than her. But a good amount of girls are that, like Lupita Godinez. But even in those fights, the Josephine Knutson fight was a very close fight in that iteration, right? And then the Lupita Godinez fight, it wasn't necessarily close for a while, but Julia Polastri put it on her in round 3. Round 3, I believe it was. She just put the pace and pressure on her, and she won the round clean, beat the hell out of Lupita Godinez, and that was like 2 necessarily kind of bad matchups for her, and she still was able to make both of them close. I mean, Josephine Knutson, not necessarily a bad matchup. She did have a grappling advantage in that fight, but she's not a grappler. She's more of a striker. And the way to beat her, like I said, for the most part, is by having good wrestling game. Karolina is a striker herself. Yes, Karolina has got a couple of takedowns in her recent career, and she's got a little bit better at rounding out her skill set, but she's still a striker, man. So her bones, her blood is still striker's blood. Like, she's not going to go out there and shoot 20 takedowns like Merab. She's not going to go out there and get 10 minutes of top control time. That's not her game. I feel like if she gets on top, she probably gets reversed once or twice as well. Julia has a sneaky submission game. I wouldn't be surprised if Julia armbars her. Like, that's how poor a grappler Karolina is. So to think that someone who's 40 years of age is going to now suddenly develop this wrestling game is a little bit wild. And even if the wrestling game that she has is enough to take Julia down, I don't think it's going to be enough to keep her down. I really don't. But I don't even think she has the game to take her down consistently anyway. Can she get a takedown or 2? Yes, of course. Julia does get taken down because she's very aggressive, but she's rounding out a game. She's getting better. I think she's going to beat the hell out of Karolina Kowalkiewicz in this fight, honestly. And if we go and look at the odds now, yeah, the odds are not really giving us anything great on Julia Polastri, right? Minus 450, I mean, we can't do too much with minus 450 price tags. But one thing I will say, boys, if we scroll to the right here, we see that under 2.5 rounds is plus 334. That is absolutely massive. Those odds are crazy. They are basically saying that there's almost no way in hell that this fight ends inside the distance. Why? Julia's going to be beating her ass, going to be kicking her in the head, and maybe even submitting her, because she's got a good submission game. As I said, I think she's the better grappler in this matchup, and she has a lot of submissions on her record. So why can't a finish materialize? I don't see why, boys. If we scroll down here, they got Julia Polastri KO at plus 900. And boys, this is Bet Online. They're notoriously poor for props. We're probably going to get Julia Polastri KO at like plus 1,200 or something on some of these other books. That is ludicrous. That is a crazy line. Why is it such a big line? She's going to be kicking her in the head. She's going to be beating her ass. Look, boys, am I saying it's a lock? No, it's plus 900. Am I saying it's going to hit? It's plus 900. Of course, it's more of a long shot. But at the end of the day, man, I think that has a very good chance of cashing compared to the odds. There's no way I would make the KO line plus 900. That's absolutely ridiculous, The submission line at plus 450 is a little bit wild to me as well. Like, in the fact that I don't know why the submission is plus 450 and the KO is plus 900. Yes, I think she has more subs on her record, or at least equal subs. But she's more of a striker. She's more of like Julia's a striker. So I don't know why the KO is plus 900. I'm going to throw, a few coins on that. I will definitely play inside the distance or the under if I played a submission as well, because I would kill myself if she got a submission over a TKO and I only bet the TKO. That would be dumb, So yeah, I honestly feel like these odds are pretty good odds, man. Am I saying it's going to happen out there? I don't know, boys. Like, yes, it's a long shot. Karolina's very tough. She rarely gets finished. Julia hasn't got a finish under the UFC banner yet. She's got one on Dana White's Contender Series. She hasn't managed to finish her opponents and not look that close in the UFC. So obviously it's a bit of a long shot. But man, Julia Polastri points are minus 190. Julia Polastri inside the distance at plus 300 or KO at plus 900. I know what I'd rather be on. So I'm picking Julia Polastri in this fight, boys. And I'm picking her very confidently. In the next fight, we have Valter Walker, the heel hook king, taking on Mohammed Usman, Kamaru Usman's big brother. Valter Walker coming into the fight with a record of 14 wins, 1 loss, while Mohammed Usman has a record of 11 wins and 4 losses. Currently, they have Valter Walker as the big favorite at minus 315, with the underdog price tag on Mohammed Usman coming back at plus 265. So like I announced, Walker, the heel hook king, and I want to scroll to his record alongside with you boys, and we can have a look at his record together because, man, this is very, very intriguing to me. I mean, we got 3 heel hook wins in a row. I don't think it's ever been done before in the UFC. It's probably rarely been done in MMA, at least in professional MMA. At least in medium to high level professional MMA, because man, there's some crazy shit that goes down in low level MMA. I'm sure there's someone who got 10 heel hooks in a row somewhere in the world, fighting the bums of the bums, and he's just got a really good heel hook. I'm sure it does, maybe not 10, but maybe like 4 or 5. But man, to do it in the UFC, I know he's not fighting the best of the best, but man, to do it in the UFC where these guys have been grappling for 5-10 years plus, a lot of these guys, it's effing insane. It really is insane. Can he do it again? Can he go out there and submit Mohammed Usman with a heel hook again? I don't know whether he's going to do it again. But one thing I will say is the exact same thing I said when he fought Kennedy and Nzechukwu in his last fight. And that is that Mohammed Usman is the type of guy to go out there and get heel hooked. That is what I said in his last fight against Kennedy. And guess what they was doing? They was giving us plus 180 odds on Valter Walker in that fight. Me and the VIPs cashed big at plus 180. And I genuinely feel like this is a spot where he could do it again. Is he going to do it? I don't know. It's hard to call a heel hook outright. But Mohammed Usman, I don't think he has that much semblance in the grappling to where he's going to be able to defend these heel hooks consistently. I mean, Junior Tafa, Don'Tale Mayes, and Kennedy and Nzechukwu all couldn't do it. I don't think Mohammed Usman is like levels above Kennedy or Don'Tale Mayes in the jiu-jitsu. I really don't, So while it's not a great idea to shoot for heel hooks and pull guard and go heel hook because, a lot of times you'll end up in a bottom position, just like the guy we spoke of, Luan Lacerda, with somebody raining down punches on you. And you don't want Mohammed Usman on top of you raining down punches because that could spell trouble for someone like Valter Walker. But at the end of the day, Valter Walker's a special talent in that he has one signature move and it's been working a lot, man. So yeah, I guess it's probably not a smart move to go out there and, always pull guard. But for Valter Walker, it really might be. He might be one of those guys where even if he doesn't get the heel hook, he'll probably create a scramble with it, or maybe the fighters just don't want to go on top of him and try and pound him out because they're just scared of the heel hook. So kind of like the Charles Oliveira effect. Remember when Charles Oliveira got knocked down all the time, against like Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier and Michael Chandler and all of these guys. And a lot of them didn't want to jump on top of him after he got knocked down because they were scared of his guard. I feel like Valter Walker might have that with a heel hook at this point. He's got that heel hook aura where he could just pull heel hook. And even though Mohammed Usman might be a bit smarter to go into the heel hook, lean on top of it, just understand the basic defense mechanisms, which he should be training in camp for the last 12 weeks, and then just ground and pound him from top position while Valter is, got his hands not up by his face, stopping the punches, but down on his heel, trying to get a heel hook. That would maybe be the smart move, but I feel like he wouldn't even do that. And a lot of fighters wouldn't do that because they're just scared of the aura of the heel hook at this point. So he might have a free heel hook. Like, he might have a free heel hook attempts here. So I don't know, man. Outside of that, what do we really know about Valter Walker? I mean, he came into the UFC and he didn't perform that well against Lucas Bresky in his debut in a fight that he still could have won. He could be 14-0 undefeated now, but he didn't perform that well. But after that, he cut down. He was in much better shape for his subsequent fights. Way better shape. He weighed in at 264 pounds for his UFC debut. And for his next fight, he weighed in at 252 pounds. For his next fight after that, he weighed in at 245 pounds. And for his next fight after that, he weighed in at 244.5. So boys, you're talking a 20-pound weight difference, right, in his last fight compared to his UFC debut. So I think there's clearly improvements, at least in the physique and in the training and the dieting and maybe the amount of cardio that this guy has been doing in camp, right? Clear. Is that going to translate into skill set in the UFC? Just because you got abs doesn't mean you're a much better fighter now? No. Does it mean you probably taking it more seriously so you'll perform better? Yes. Does it mean that you have a potential 50-50 chance, maybe even more, of having better cardio now? Yes, so these are all very positive things. Doesn't mean you're a better grappler, a better striker, a better nail, a better hammer, like a better pace, better pressure. No, it doesn't mean any of those things, right? So the jury's still out on Vitor Walker and how he will look over 10, 15 minutes. But I definitely have to say that I have seen some improvements, and we have to expect some improvements if the fight goes long. I've got Vitor Walker in this fight, guys. Mohammed Usman doesn't have much, in my opinion. I mean, in his first round against Hamdi, he basically took the entire round off. You can't do that at the UFC level. If he comes in and performs the way he did against Hamdi in round 1 of his last fight, and he won that fight, by the way, but he performs in round 1 like that, I think he gets submitted. Because Vitor Walker starts fast, hard, and early. And Mohammed Usman did not do that in his last fight. In fact, he took almost the whole round off, right? So I feel like Vitor Walker could be in for another round 1 finish here. I truly, truly do. And that's what I'm going to pick. I'm going to pick Vitor Walker via round 1 submission. Yet again. By the way, boys, he doesn't only have heel hooks. If we scroll down on his record, we can see here, he has ground and pound finishes, right? That's obviously from top position. He has a rear naked choke in his very second fight. So it's not like he can only finish you with a heel hook. He's got KOs and ground and pound finishes as well. So, yeah, I feel like he's got all the upside in this fight. I feel like Mohammed Usman has to win this fight via split decision to win this fight. One thing I will say is that Vitor Walker's wrestling might not work as well in this fight because Mohammed Usman, he has decent wrestling. He's a big guy. He's a physical guy. So I don't know if he's going to be able to take him down like he did Lucas Brzeski. But at the end of the day, I think Mohammed Usman is a level below Kennedy Nzechukwu, for example, and probably the same level as Lucas Brzeski and Don'Tale Mayes. And Vitor Walker arguably beat all of those guys and definitely beat 2 of them. So yeah, I got Vitor Walker in this one. Can we play anything? Yeah, I did look at this earlier, boys, just before I came on here, and I saw the under 2.5 rounds is at -135. I don't mind the under 2.5 rounds here, boys. I don't mind, I thought it would be set at under 1.5, based on literally every single one of Vitor's last 3 fights going under 1.5 rounds. I thought we could see, an under 1.5 here. So I kind of like the under 2.5 rounds at -135. I mean, do we just sack up and say the most likely finish under 2.5 is a Vitor Walker submission? So we just play Vitor Walker submission at +175. Maybe we do. Maybe we do better than that. Than laying juice. Maybe we just play submission at +175. But as I said, the ground and pound is live. The ground and pound is live. Do we go even crazier and go Vitor Walker by round 1 submission +400? Do we go even crazier and go Vitor Walker that's a little bit less crazy, but Vitor Walker round 1 in general, at +255. I don't know. There's a few angles we can take to play it, boys. But yeah, I don't mind the under here. I got Walker to win. I don't mind Walker's submission. I mean, how can you not, based on his last fights? You kind of have to like that, in my opinion. Next fight up, we got Lucas Rocha taking on Stewart Nicoll. Both looking to bounce back from losses in their last UFC fight. Lucas Rocha coming into this fight with a record of 17 wins, only 2 losses. Stewart Nicoll, on the other hand, 8 wins, also only 1 loss. Currently, they got Lucas Rocha a -130 favorite with the underdog price tag on Stewart Nicoll coming back at +110. This is a very good fight, boys. This is actually a banger of a fight. Flyweight fight. I love flyweights, as we all know. Flyweight is my weight, violence weight. I just feel like it's a great weight class, man. The way they perform mixed martial arts is to the highest level. They weigh the lightest, right? So their technique is the best. Their cardio is the best. Their speed is the best. I just feel like flyweight is the best weight, in my opinion. I can't believe Dana White was once upon a time talking about getting rid of flyweight. Now he's got Pantoja headlining fights like 3 times a year, But anyway, yeah, Stewart Nicoll laid an egg in his last fight. He was dominating the fight against Jesus Aguilar in round 1 and taking Aguilar down at will, dominating him, Kimura-ing him, ground and pounding him, taking a back, pounding him out from back position. He ended up losing a back position, and basically Jesus Aguilar just jumped guillotine and guillotined him, man. You know, put him unconscious. Stewart Nicoll didn't tap, stayed in the guillotine for a long time. He ended up not tapping it, but he went unconscious, man. And I feel like that was a bit of a fluke win. Now, I don't want to call it a fluke because Jesus Aguilar has an elite guillotine and he can guillotine anyone. So would I call Alex Pereira knockout a fluke win? No. Would I say it could be unlikely? Like Alex knocking out Pereira the way he did, I don't think that's a fluke, but I think it's unlikely. So I'm not going to say Jesus Aguilar was a fluke, but I'm going to say it's unlikely. You know, like if they fight that back, if they run that fight back, I don't think he gets submitted a lot of times, you know what I mean? I think more often than not, he probably just grinds him out. But Aguilar's, you know, proved to be a pretty decent UFC fighter at this point. I mean, he's not aesthetic, but he's kind of effective, you know? So, yeah, I mean, he lost the fight, but I feel like he didn't perform that bad. And before that, he was just basically dominating fighters on the regional scene. So if you didn't know who this guy is, he's an Aussie fighter. They put him on the last perf card, the perf card before last, so not the one a couple of weeks ago, but the one last year, and that's where he lost against Jesus Aguilar. They was trying to pump him up, they were trying to build him. He lost, so they was like, F you, I'm not going to put you on this next perf card, I guess, because he should really be on that card. He's a good fighter, Stewart Nicoll, in my opinion. He hasn't showed himself in the UFC, but he's a good grappler. Now, I don't think he's got the best jiu-jitsu, but he's very tenacious. Extremely tenacious. He reminds me of Merab in his tenacity, right? In terms of, I'm just going to keep taking you down. I'm not going to get tired. You're going to get tired. Like he's got that style of Merab in him. Now, what he doesn't have is the striking of Merab. You know, like he's pretty hittable. His striking isn't great. I think that Lucas Rocha could beat him up badly on the feet, to be honest, man. I don't think this guy's a good striker, but I do think he's going to get takedowns in this fight. Lucas Rocha, on the other hand, he's kind of the opposite. Like he's more of a striker. You know, he's lost fights via takedowns. Even his Dana White's Contender Series fight, if you go back and watch that, he kind of got dominated in round one. He got taken down 8 times, I believe it was, in round one. Now, don't quote me on that. That's what the commentator says when I was watching it in between rounds, but I didn't count all the takedowns, but it's about 8, right? So they said 8. And in round 2, he just flying knees Bittencourt and gets a knockout after he was kind of getting dominated. Kind of the Sean Woodson versus Terrence McKinney fight, you know, it's kind of a repeat of that one, to be honest, on Contender Series as well, second round knockout as well. So yeah, Lucas Rocha is dangerous on the feet. He can knock you out of a flying knee. You go back and look at the Clayton Carpenter fight, which was his UFC debut, last fight, tough debut. And we'll talk about Clayton Carpenter later on because he's fighting a very, very good fight, you know, potentially one of the best fights on the card later on, another flyweight banger. But yeah, Lucas Rocha, you know, he lost that fight via takedowns. He was kind of beating up Clayton on the feet at times. Clayton was doing well on the feet as well, but he was definitely putting the hands on him. He was definitely putting the kicks on him and the paws on him, but he ended up getting taken down in the second round, in the first round, but also in the second round, and he got his back taken. He kind of rushed the position, gave his back up too fast, and he got submitted by a rear naked choke. And I think that's very live here. I think Stewart Nicoll's submission is live. It's like plus 450, plus 500 odds. I think that's very live. But it's tough for me to pick Stewart Nicoll outright just because I know for a fact that Lucas Rocha is more battle tested, you know, like he's gone through way more adversity than Nicoll, you know, and he's come out of adversity as well. There's been fights that he's been losing. Again, even like the Bittencourt fight, where he's been losing, but then he turns it around. Stewart Nicoll basically ran through all his opponents, and then the one time he got some adversity, he got put unconscious. That is a fact, you know. You can't ignore the grappling upside that Stewart Nicoll has in this fight. I mean, he's going to take Lucas Rocha down multiple times in this fight. Is his jiu-jitsu good enough to finish him? That I'm not sure about. I don't think his jiu-jitsu is amazing. I will say that. I think he's just tenacious. I think his jiu-jitsu is good. Don't get me wrong. It's very good. Like, he takes the back. He's got chokes. He flattens you out. But it's more pace and pressure and tenacity and takedowns that really get him the win. And cardio, very good cardio, that get him the win. It's not really like slick jiu-jitsu. And I kind of feel like you need to be very slick to catch Lucas Rocha in something. So it's a tough one for me, boys. I'm actually going to pick Stewart Nicoll because I feel like the takedowns are going to be free at times. He's definitely going to get multiple takedowns, and he could just rinse him. He could just take him down multiple times, take him down, and just submit him. Like, he could do that, right? Or he could just take him down, you know, most of the fight, and then in round 2 submit him. Like, I could see that happening. So I can't, you know, bet against that. But it's a close fight. I could easily see Stewart Nicoll getting takedowns, and then they get stood back up in round 2, and then he just gets knocked out in round 2. Like, that could easily happen. Lucas Rocha has a tremendous advantage on the feet, but Nicoll has a big advantage on the mat. But seeing Jesus submit him, I question his grappling defense to some degree as well as jiu-jitsu, although, like I said, Jesus is a specialist. So I'll pick Nicoll at this stage, boys. The under 2.5 is minus 140, and I know it's a flyweight fight, but I don't mind that. As I said, Lucas Rocha knockout, super live. Stewart Nicoll submission, ground and pound, super live. So the under 2.5 rounds at minus 140 is not bad, and I don't mind that one. But as a prediction, as a pure pick, I'm going to be picking Stewart Nicoll, especially because he's an underdog. For the next fight on the card, we have Irina Alekseeva versus Beatriz Mesquita. So Mesquita coming into this fight, making her UFC debut. Currently, she has a record of 5 wins, no losses. On the other hand, we have Alekseeva trying to bounce back from 2 consecutive UFC losses, her record being 5 wins and 3 losses. Currently, they have the newcomer making a UFC debut as one of the biggest favorites on the card at -525 odds, with the underdog price tag on Irina Alekseeva coming back at +385. So we got Russian Ronda taking on Beatriz Mesquita. Well, I don't know why she's called Russian Ronda. Last time I know, Ronda doesn't get dominated on the ground. She kind of gets beat up on the feet, and Irina Alekseeva, she's been dominated on the ground a couple of times, and she's fighting someone who's making a UFC debut. And if you don't know who this girl is, she's the type of girl that will dominate you on the ground. This girl is a 10-time black belt level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion in the gi. She's also a black belt world champion without the gi. This girl has fought the who's who in Jiu-Jitsu. She's beaten a lot of very good girls, and this girl's a jiu-jitsu ace. And you can tell when you watch her tape. Now, I've seen girls survive on bottom from her for whole rounds. I've even seen her have girls in rear naked chokes, and they survive. So I don't know if she's gonna, just submit everyone. I don't think she will, to be honest. I know she won't. There's gonna be fights where she takes, and it's even happened on the regional scene. Like, she'll take the girl down, and she won't even submit them, like I said. So she's very, very good at jiu-jitsu. Once she gets you down, it's basically a round. But is it going to be an instant submission? No. Can it be? Yes. She's high-level jiu-jitsu, but I don't think she's like the best jiu-jitsu fighter we've ever seen. I'd say she's... I feel like Mackenzie Dern's more dangerous than her, to be honest, man. Like, I do. But to be honest, she's only young in MMA, man. So she's got a lot to learn. She may get better. She's 34 years old if we scroll up here, so... It's not ideal, she's not a young prospect, but she's like 21 in MMA. I was watching one of her regional scene fights, and the commentators were talking about her interview that she had, right? And I didn't watch the interview, but apparently in the interview, she says like she feels like a white belt in MMA. She's only been training it for a couple of years, and she feels like she's a white belt. So although she's 34 years old, I feel like we're still going to see improvements out of her. Like, if you're 34 years old, we don't see improvements out of women. Women are a bit less, but men or MMA fighters that are 34 years old, it's very rare. But if you've only been training MMA for 2-3 years, of course we're going to see improvements. So, and to be honest, I've even seen improvements with her takedowns in her last fight compared to her first fights. I mean, if you go back and watch some of her, like even in the fight against Fernanda Araújo, I feel like her takedowns looked worse than in June 20th, 2025 fight against Sierra Dinwoody. I believe her takedowns were better in that most recent fight. I guess Araújo was like a Brazilian... No, she was a judo black belt, so obviously harder to take down. But I can just see with my eyes that she's definitely getting better, and she's improving in her takedowns. She's shooting single legs, double legs, and they just look a little bit better. She's fought a lot of fighters here. Look, she even beat Miesha Tate in an armbar. I didn't even see that one. And Jennifer Maia, I saw that one, but I didn't see the Miesha Tate armbar. Fionn Davis, who's one of the best in the world. She lost to Juliana Miller via decision grappling. So, yeah, look, Jenna Bishop, she beat her submission, who is also a jiu-jitsu fighter over there in Bellator PFL. So, yeah, she's fought a lot of good girls. She's beat a lot of good girls. And I just feel like she's going to take Alekseeva down and submit her here, man. Alekseeva, if we go and look at her record, it's not pretty, man. She lost against Claudia Segula, which was a terrible, terrible performance. And I knew she could lose that fight. She lost against Melissa Mullins. She got taken down multiple times. The crazy thing about the Melissa Mullins fight is that she tried to take Mullins down multiple times, even though she knocked her down on the feet. She was clearly winning on the feet. And for some reason, she tries to shoot takedowns. She gets reversed in all of them. The takedown she does get in round 3, when it's 1-1 going into round 3, she gets a head and arm throw, a brutal takedown, judo throw, hip tossed her, smashed her on the ground. Somehow, 5 seconds later, she's on bottom, getting her back taken. Like, I don't know what it is with this girl, but she plays in the grappling way too much. They call her Russian Ronda. She plays in the grappling way too much. She relies on her grappling way too much. And she's a bit of a head case, man. I hope she's doing well now, but I said this before our last fight against Claudia Segula, but she actually went for a very bad period where she got caught injecting testosterone. She had lots of issues with her camp, her team, her friends after that. And she even was, considering suicide. So while I hope she's better, it's, you never want to hear that. It's not good to be an MMA fighter if you're thinking those thoughts, if your life is in chaos. That's like the worst base for an MMA fight, right? I think we can all agree on that. So I don't think she's going to go in here and like put on this crazy performance, never bet, and we've never seen her put on this type of performance. If anything, she's just going to get worse and worse. She's not young herself. She's 35 years old. She's old. She's the older fighter here. This seems a setup fight if I've ever seen one in MMA. This seems like a setup fight. I honestly think that Alekseeva is probably going to play in the grappling here, which is insane against a grappling whiz like Beatriz. But I really do believe that she doesn't even need to, because Beatriz might just take her down and submit her. But if she doesn't take her down, Alekseeva will probably try to take her down, probably roll for a knee bar, probably engage in the grappling too long, probably defend the takedown, but then try and take her down, whatever it is, she's going to engage in the grappling for too long, and she's probably going to get submitted here. Do I think she can get submitted on the first takedown? No. Do I think the round is over on the first takedown? Yes. I don't think Alekseeva will get back up to her feet once she gets taken down, and it's like 50-50 whether she's going to get submitted or ground and pounded or, just lose that round via top control. So I feel like at some point, Mesquita is going to get the finish. Is it in round 1? Is it in round 2? Is it in round 3? I don't know. I'm guessing round 2 or round 3, just because Beatriz isn't really a fast starter. She's got 2 finishes in the first round. They was both against 0-0 opponents. As soon as she fought anybody with a pulse, and I mean, these girls are like 2-2, 3-3. She went into round 2, sometimes late into round 2. So I feel like it's probably going to come in round 2 or round 3, but I do think Beatriz gets the finish win in this fight. Next fight on the card, we got Vitor Petrino taking on Thomas Petersen. Vitor Petrino coming into this fight with a record of 12 wins, 2 losses. Thomas Petersen, on the other hand, coming into this fight, 10 wins, 3 losses. Currently, they have Vitor Petrino as the massive -310 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Thomas Petersen coming back at +260. Yeah, boys, it just seems time and time again they're making Vitor Petrino like a -300, -400 favorite in every single fight, and we just have to determine whether he's gonna win or whether there's value on the underdog, because he's dropped the ball multiple times now. He dropped the ball against Dustin Jacoby, got knocked out in that fight, got knocked out clean, got knocked out cold, and then he also got finished by Anthony Smith, the ghost of Anthony Smith to some degree. So I'm never really going to trust Vitor Petrino at -310 against people who have a genuine path against him, but it seems like to beat him, you kind of have to finish him. Not have to, obviously, there's people that can decision him, but if I'm betting against Vitor Petrino, I want the guy to be very dangerous, because he can be a bit chinny, Petrino, and he can be submitted, as we've seen in the UFC. So in this fight against Thomas Petersen is kind of the opposite of dangerous. He's not a great submission finisher, and he's not really got any striking danger. He's a wrestler. He is a grinder. He's got good cardio. He's got decent positional jiu-jitsu. He's going to keep you down on the mat. Like, he's going to rinse and repeat the takedowns. He's going to go to his single leg. That's what he's going to do. I don't know if it's necessarily the right style to beat Petrino. I do think he can give Petrino trouble here. I do think he can take it. I think he's got better cardio than Petrino, for sure. And Petrino's moving up to heavyweight, right? He's moved up to heavyweight. We saw that in his last fight. It was his debut at the UFC heavyweight division. And I don't necessarily think that's a great move for him. I don't know whether he is like a true, fully blown heavyweight fighter. I kind of feel the same about him and Jailton Almeida. It's not you can't do well there. Like, Jailton Almeida's damn near going to fight for a title soon, right? So I think Petrino can do well at heavyweight. I just feel like his natural weight class might be light heavyweight. And at heavyweight, he's going to be fighting fighters who are harder to take down, harder to grapple, and hit harder, And if they're on top of you, it's going to be harder to get up from bottom. So I don't necessarily think it's a great move for Petrino going up to heavyweight. But regardless of that, in this fight, I do give him some advantage, mainly in the striking. Petrino hits very hard. And since he's moving up to light heavyweight, one of the advantages he does have is striking accuracy, striking speed, right? So I know he's going to hit Thomas Petersen with hard and fast shots in this fight. And Thomas Petersen, he is not good at striking, just in general, right? He walks forward into range. He's a tough motherfucker. He tries to swing, but I don't think he has the skill set to avoid the big shots of Petrino. And we could see another first-round knockout on Thomas Petersen here. We could see Petersen knocked out again. And I mean, if you look at his fight against Shamil Gaziev, that was a brutal one. That was a brutal knockout, kind of out of nowhere, and we could see it here. Vitor Petrino is known for his left hook. Gaziev knocked him out of a hook. Like, I could just see a knockout here out of nowhere when the fight's looking kind of even. Kind of that fight against Gaziev was looking like that, because the striking defense just is not there, and the chin, I don't think necessarily is there either. Look, I do give Petersen some chance to win this fight. Let's look at Petersen via decision, guys, because I could see a world in which he doesn't get the finish on Vitor Petrino, but he just grinds him out via decision. I mean, in his last fight against Don'Tale Mayes, that was a poor performance, boys, because I felt like the submission was there for him all day. If you're not finishing Dontel Mays on the ground, I can't expect you to finish Vitor Petrino. So maybe, we double down. Thomas Petersen via decision is plus 600 odds, right? And his money line is plus 260. So I kind of like the decision better. Look, like I said, it's heavyweight. He obviously, even though he's not a great striker, he still hits hard. Could he knock out someone who seems to be maybe chinny? Yes. Could he submit him? I mean, he's a good submission artist to some degree, maybe, but I feel like Petrino's well-versed enough to not get submitted from the bottom. If he jumps on the guillotine like Anthony Smith, Anthony Smith has a good guillotine, Again, obviously, look, Thomas Petersen can finish the fight, right? But I'm just trying to extract as much value as possible. And I feel like Thomas Petersen via decision is more of his style. He's more of a decision fighter. He's going to single leg you, rinse and repeat, stay heavy on top. And I do think a decision is possible here. I think, though, the most likely outcome is probably a Petrino knockout. And that's what they agree, because, look, plus 140 is Petrino knockout, right? Petrino submission is plus 550. So the most likely outcome by far, the bookies say, is KO, and that's what I say as well. So I'm going to pick Vitor Petrino via KO, but I don't love the pick, and I'm definitely not in love with the price tag at minus 310. I might even end up with a bet on Petersen or so. I don't think I will, but, maybe a degenerate parlay, degenerate prop, Petersen decision, long shot prop, something like that. In my VIP every week, I send out long shot parlays and long shot prop bets. And maybe you see a Thomas Petersen via decision at plus 600 in a long shot prop bets, because it's a long shot. It's a long shot that I think could happen. And like I always say, boys, I often bet against my predictions. I'll say this once again, boys. If you want my official bets, go to the link in my bio, sublaunch.com/lucrativemma. You'll not only get my bets, but you'll get me telling you exactly how much to put on each bet, how much to stake on each bet, which is very important, right? And also, I bet against my predictions a lot, right? And I understand people on YouTube get annoyed at this because they're like, well, if you bet against your predictions sometimes, why should we even listen to you? You don't have to listen to me, right? If you want my actual bets, you can sign up and actually make real money with me. But I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that my predictions and my picks are exactly what I bet. That's not how you bet. Professional sports betting and betting for fun and betting to lose money is two completely different things. Professionals, us, we bet against our predictions and we bet where the value is a lot of the time, right? All of the time we bet where the value is, and a lot of the time that's against our predictions. People betting for fun and parlays and, people that make YouTube videos or people that leave comments on YouTube or on Instagram or whatever, like that whole, basically everything, every person that bets outside of a pro gambler, they bet for the most part on who they think's going to win, right? But there's a big difference between me and those people. So I'm not going to lie and tell you that's not the case. That is literally the case. So, yes, I'm picking Petrino. Would I bet Petrino? No. Do I think he's going to win? Yes. Would I bet on him though? No. So that's it, boys. For the next fight of the night, we got Jafel Filho taking on Clayton Carpenter in an absolute banger flyweight, myweight matchup. Jafel Filho coming into this fight with a record of 16 wins, 4 losses. Clayton Carpenter, on the other hand, coming into this fight with a record of 8 wins with only 1 loss. Currently, they've got Clayton Carpenter as the minus 120 favorite with the underdog price tag on Jafel Filho coming back at plus 100. So very closely lined fight here, guys, and there's no wonder why. Both fighters are pretty evenly matched. I think the UFC has done a great job putting on this fight. I think they're both going to be pretty disappointed in their last performances. I think they both fought kind of well, though. I think they both impressed me to some degree, but I think themselves are going to be disappointed because I think a few minor adjustments of either fighter in both fights, and they could have definitely performed a lot better. Jafel Filho could have definitely won. Clayton Carpenter, maybe not won, but made it a lot closer. Won a round, made another round very close. Yes, because I just feel like they were both a few specific sequences away from doing a lot better, maybe even winning those fights. So on the Jafel Filho side, he fought Alan Nascimento, right, who is an elite grappler, very big guy for the flyweight division. And in that fight, man, that was a close fight. Like, he dominated round 1, took Alan Nascimento down with ease, took his back, ground and pounded him, flattened him out, even put him in a one-arm guillotine and dominated the round, took him down with body lock takedowns. In fact, Alan Nascimento went for the first body lock takedown, and Jafel Filho was just so strong, he just ended up on top. And then he was able to take him down again in the same round. In round 2 and round 3, Filho looked to tire out a little bit. He got tired, and he made a couple of mistakes in the grappling that got him to lose those second and third round and lose via decision, clear-cut decision. but it was a very close fight. You know, it could have gone either way in the fact that, well, that fight couldn't have gone either way. It was clear Nascimento win, but it could have gone either way in the fact that Jafel Filho could have had a win if he did something slightly different. Clayton Carpenter, on the other hand, you know, he wasn't in a fight as close as that, but he got taken down multiple times. He accepted the bottom position a lot more than I would have liked, but, you know, he still made it a gritty, grimy affair. And I felt like he performed pretty well in that. I mean, it's a massive step up in competition fighting someone like Tagir Ulanbekov. So in this fight, the way I see it playing out is that Jafel Filho is probably going to have some round one upside. You know, he's probably going to do well in round one. One thing I've noticed is that Clayton Carpenter gets taken down multiple times by the body lock takedown. And if we go back and look at the Alan Nascimento fight and a lot of other fights for Jafel Filho, he takes his opponents down with the body lock takedown very well. So I feel like the body lock takedown is going to be very important in this matchup, and it will lead to some takedowns. Now, I don't know if Clayton Carpenter has watched a couple of his fights back to gear fight and thought, all right, I'm not going to play jiu-jitsu as much. If he has, then he might be able to get back up to his feet. He also could get his back taken if he does that, but I feel like it's going to give him a better chance. And if he is able to avoid the submission in round one, I think he can start to put the pace and pressure on him in round two and round three. I think this is a very close fight. I think it could go either way. I favor Jafel Filho on the ground. I favor Clayton Carpenter a little bit in the stand-up. I favor Clayton Carpenter's cardio a lot as well. I think he's got more dog in him. You know, I feel like he's probably improving as well, 28 years old. 29 years old against the 32-year-old flyweight in Jafel Filho. So it's just a close fight, you know. I don't really want anything to do with this one. I don't mind the over because I feel like both of them are extremely tough, probably too tough to get finished. But at the end of the day, man, Jafel Filho, you know, had Mokaev in that knee bar. He is a dangerous fighter himself. Filo's kind of like a finisher himself, you know, so it's kind of hard to just bet on an over in this fight. And then Clayton Carpenter, if he does win, it's probably because he has a big round two and big round three where he could even hurt Filho and maybe even finish Filho in round three. I mean, if we go back and look at his career, and we can do this together right now, boys, if you look at the screen. If we go back and look at Filho's career, I cashed a massive bet on Mohammed Mokaev to finish him in round three. But if we scroll down even more, he got beat by Luan Matthews in round three, and he lost the decision to Bruno Carrera. So he's only been beat, where are we going? 4 times, right? He's only been beat 4 times. 2 of those were in round 3, and 2 of those were via decision. So, you know, the guy's very good early, but he gasses out. He slows down, and then he either loses rounds to lose the decision, like he did against Nascimento, or he loses in round 3. So, yeah, again, it's a little bit risky because Clayton has late upside and Filho has early upside. But I do feel like it probably goes to a decision. I'm going to pick, I don't know, this is a 50-50 fight. I don't know. Who's the underdog? I'll pick the underdog. Jafel Filho's the underdog. Fuck it. I'll pick Jafel Filho as an underdog at plus 100 because I feel like no one should be an underdog. It should probably be minus 110. Very close fight. But I kind of want to pick Clayton Carpenter to some degree. But this is tough for me, boys. You know what? I'm going to flip my pick, man. I'm going to say Clayton Carpenter dogs out a tough first round and then gets it done in round 2 and round 3, probably by decision, or maybe he finishes him in round 3. I could see a Clayton Carpenter round 3 finish. I might even bet Clayton Carpenter round 3, to be honest, boys. So I'm going to flip. I know. I mean, and that just shows how close this fight is. That just shows how unconfident I am. But I want to actually go with Clayton Carpenter in this one. I'm going to say that he makes some improvements from his last fight and is able to weather the storm and get a third round finish or a decision win. In the next fight of the night, we got Ricardo Ramos taking on Kaan Ofli. Ricardo Ramos coming into this fight with a record of 17 wins, 7 losses. Kaan Ofli, on the other hand, has 11 wins, 4 losses, and 1 draw. Currently, they have Ricardo Ramos as the favorite at minus 180, with the underdog price tag on Kaan Ofli coming back at plus 155. Ugly fight, boys. I don't really necessarily want anything to do with this one. I do want to watch a little bit more tape on Kaan Ofli, but he might just not be UFC level. You know, we've seen his performances against Mohammed Naimov, and he didn't look that good in that fight. We've seen his performance against Myron Santos. He pushed the pace, he did his best, but again, was basically outskilled by a fighter who is UFC level versus someone who I'm not sure, deserves to be at the upper echelon of the UFC or even in the UFC in general. Taking on Ricardo Ramos, who definitely has the skill set to be here, but can doubt himself a little bit. He's a confidence-based fighter. He can gas out heavily. Sometimes he seems to not know what he's doing. When his spinning stuff isn't working, when his high velocity moves are not working, he seems to panic a little bit, gas out, get tired, just look poor. And even though he lasted the decision against Chepe, I don't know how he did that, He's been to decision now against Joshua Kulabau, against Chepe Mariscal, but to be honest, I don't know how he went to decision against Chepe Mariscal. Chepe should have finished him. Josh won, decent win, shout out to him. could have gone the other way. It was a very close fight. I just don't know how to think about this fight. I feel like Ricardo Ramos is probably going to just be too good for him. You know, like I think he's a better grappler. I think he's a better striker, but I think he's got worse cardio, probably worse wrestling. Ofli's going to go in there and try and shoot multiple takedowns, probably try to get him down, probably try to grind him out, try to make him tired. And that's exactly what you need to do if you want to fight Ricardo Ramos. I just feel like because the skill set is a little bit below, he might just walk into a spinning elbow or something like that. At the end of the day, man, Ricardo Ramos is not the best fighter, but he's only lost to really good fighters. You know, he's only lost to the likes of Chepe Mariscal, to the likes of Julian Erosa, to the likes of Charles Jourdain, you know, people like this. So pretty decent UFC level fighters, whereas Kaan Ofli, he's just not that, or at least he hasn't proven to be that. So I'm going to take Ricardo Ramos in this one. I'm going to say he gets it done inside the distance. If we can look together, maybe we'll see, maybe we can see a good price tag for like a dozen go or something. So currently they have the under 2.5 at plus money, which is decent. I feel like it might be more on the Ramos side, but at the end of the day, man, you can never trust Ramos to like completely finish a fight. I mean, Kaan Ofli might just submit him. You know, it's definitely possible. Let's see what they got. So they got Ricardo Ramos by submission is plus 350, plus KO is plus 450. I don't mind that doesn't go to decision or the under 2.5 rounds, just because Ramos is so dangerous, especially against fighters who maybe are not UFC level, and Kaan Ofli hasn't proved himself to be UFC level yet. So it could be another Danny Chavez spinning back elbow KO round one, you know? It could just be that Ricardo's a level above so he gets to finish. Or if Ofli's getting his game going, then Ricardo Ramos is liable to get finished. So I'm going to pick Ricardo in this fight. I'm going to pick Ricardo to win inside the distance. Probably submission. But yeah, I'm not really confident on this spot in terms of money lines anyway. In the next fight, we have Jhonata Diniz taking on Mario Pinto. So Jhonata Diniz coming into this fight with a record of 9 wins, 1 loss. Mario Pinto, very similar record, 10 wins with 0 losses. So this is one of the closest line fights on the entire card. Currently, they have Jhonata Diniz as a slight minus 120 favorite with the underdog price tag on Mario Pinto coming back at plus 130. Now, this is very interesting, boys, and it just shows you all about line movement, because I actually already broke this fight down on my betting picks video, which is on YouTube now. You can go watch it if you want like a fully in-depth breakdown on this one. And Jhonata Diniz was plus 130 underdog. And I actually said that, you know, there's probably some value on Jhonata Diniz. And I turned out to be right. The market agrees. Now Jhonata Diniz is the favorite at minus 120. So I didn't jump in on Jhonata Diniz, and I didn't bet him because I just think it's a close fight. I think Mario has more upside in general because I think he's a bit better wrestler and grappler. So if that does come into play, well, then who knows what could happen. You know, because we haven't really seen Mario grapple or wrestle, but if he does do it, he might just look like a big favorite against someone like Jhonata Diniz who can't really wrestle or grapple. You know, that guy's a pure striker. So I feel like I didn't really want to jump in and fade Mario in this type of fight, but I did think there was some value on Diniz at plus money because I feel like it's a minus 110 type fight. I think it should be even money, maybe slightly into Mario, but probably not minus 130, maybe like minus 115, minus 120 or something like that. But anyway, man, I see the fight playing out very interestingly. I think it's going to be a chess match. I think it's going to be a low-paced fight, especially early. Maybe it'll start to get going in rounds 2 and round 3, but I think, you know, Diniz probably has better kicks, better range control, better distance management, better leg kicks, better body kicks. He has more power in his hands. You know, he could maybe knock or hurt more people than Pinto can. But I think Pinto is a better boxer. I think he's more accurate with his shots in the boxing specifically. I think he has potentially, you know, slicker combinations. So that oftentimes leads itself to a KO because, you know, he's very slick with the combinations. He'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't see the 4th one coming. You get knocked out, not because of the power, but because of the slickness, the speed, and the accuracy. Whereas Diniz kind of just one-shots you, you know, big power. Obviously, he's got good combos as well. He's a storied kickboxer. You know, he's got a lot of kickboxing fights. I just think this is a very close fight. A mirror matchup to some degree in that they're both not going to wrestle. They're both strikers. They're both patient. You know, they're both kind of similar. We've got a boxer versus a kickboxer for the most part. I'm going to take Mario Pinto in this fight. I don't know who I took in the last fight. I think I called it like a pick'em. But yeah, I feel like Mario Pinto's just got more upside in the division. You know, if we go back and look at their age, we got Diniz at 34 years old with Mario Pinto 27 years old. Mario Pinto 10-0, got that undefeated swag, hasn't tasted defeat yet. So yeah, I like Pinto in this one a little bit, but not a lot. I'm not going to bet him. But what I don't mind is the over 1.5 rounds. I actually made a video, Hammer of the Week. Now, Hammer of the Week is a video where I basically go over the best betting spot on the entire card. And I also tell you some props to add on to that betting spot. So we have like one main betting spot, and then we add a bunch of props. So that video is on my channel right now. Make sure you go and watch that after this video. Maybe even open it up in another tab now so you have it ready. I'm not going to go in depth, and I'm not going to tell you the props, and because we had a lot of props on this fight that I gave out in that video. I'm not going to go through them now because that's a separate video. Go and watch that video after. And like I said, boys, if you appreciate all of this content I'm giving you completely for free, you know, this is going to be an hour video completely for free, boys. The Hammer of the Week video, again, completely for free. And I actually pay for that video, right? Because I have to pay an editor to create the video. So if you appreciate that, please hit the like button down below. It's free. You can do it right now as I'm talking. Hit the subscribe button. Leave me a nice comment. I would appreciate it. But yeah, I'll pick Pinto in this one, but not like a strong lean. We'll move on to the next fight. So we're getting into the good stuff now, boys. We have Vicente Luque taking on Joel Alvarez. Vicente Luque coming into this fight, record of 23 wins, 11 losses, 1 draw. Joel Alvarez, on the other hand, similar amount of wins, 22 wins, not a similar amount of losses, only 3 losses. So you got to be the best to beat Joel Alvarez. And the odds reflect that. Currently, Joel Alvarez, the massive minus 550 favorite, I believe, making him the biggest favorite on the entire fight card. With the underdog price tag on Vicente Luque coming back at plus 400 odds. So yeah, we've got a Spanish Joel Alvarez, El Fenomeno, coming into this fight, looking to complete or to continue his first round finish record. Actually, it's not, because he beat Elvis Brenner in round 3. The last fight was first round though, so he is looking to continue his first round finish record and defeat Vicente Luque in round 1. It's going to be a tough one, but man, I feel like he has all the tools to do it. I mean, Vicente Luque at this point in his career, if we scroll down here, he's 33 years of age. But honestly, boys, he's like 39 years of age. When we talk about fight age, when we talk about fight years, remember, numerical age, date of birth versus fight years are 2 completely different things. Vicente Luque 5 years ago had a bleed on the brain. I mean, this guy is 39, 40 years of age in fight years. And Joel Alvarez is 32. He's in his prime, you know, and he's only improving and getting better. One thing I will say is that this fight is at 170 pounds, so it may affect the fight a little bit. I think Joel's going to look good at 170 pounds. You know, I think he's big enough. He's 6'3", for God's sake. He's big enough to fill into his frame and look good at 170 pounds. But it is still a question mark. You know, we haven't seen him compete at that weight in the UFC. So, you know, maybe he is more suited to 155. We don't know. It's just a little bit more volatile. It adds a little bit of volatility, whereas Vicente Luque has been a 170 pounder for a long, long time now. But yeah, I don't see many other outcomes of this fight other than a finish for Joel Alvarez. I really don't. I mean, on the feet, he's so vicious. He's so brutal. Those long teeps up the middle, those knees, even those elbows when he gets in close that he's added, you know, is the long range punches. He's going to hurt you with every strike. You know, he digs in, very powerful guy. And then his submissions. Don't forget, boys, Joel Alvarez is a submission fighter. I know you've seen his recent fights and just knocking fools out. This guy is a submission fighter. Let me tell you that now. He does his best work with the guillotines. He does his best work with the submissions. He does his best work when he can triangle you, when he can tie you up in his guard. Let's go back together and look at Joel Alvarez's career. Yes, he's got a flying knee win here. By the way, though, he also submitted Drakkar Klose. I mean, he submitted an unconscious body, but he went for that. He went for that front headlock there. Like, never forget that. The guy's just embedded into him is a grappler's mindset, you know? Yes, he knocked out his last 2 opponents, right? Mark Diakiese was a submission. That was a weird fight. It was like a headbutt was a submission. Go back. The Thiago Moises one was really the fight where he came out and he put it on Thiago Moises. And I was like, damn, we may have a contender here. So look at this. He got an armbar against Yakovlev, guillotine against Duffy, ground and pound against Danilo, triangle choke here, dash choke here, triangle choke, guillotine, guillotine, triangle. I mean, guillotine. This guy is as much of a submission fighter as he is now a striker. So I kind of feel like it's going to be a submission. I feel like he goes back to the roots. At the end of the day, Vicente Luque's durability is dropping, is waning. But he's still a tough guy, man. He's still not easy to just put out. And no one's ever just one-shotted him, you know? So I kind of feel like Vicente Luque is going to get hurt on the feet, jump into a guillotine or a DAS, and just get DASed again. I mean, if you go back and look at his last fight against Kevin Holland, he got DASed there, or Anaconda. So if that can happen to him against Kevin, I think that can happen to him against someone like Joel Alvarez. I'm picking Joel Alvarez in this fight. I'm picking Joel Alvarez via submission. And by the way, don't go crazy and put all your money on submission. At the end of the day, it can be a knockout, but I like the submission odds here. The submission odds are currently like plus 175, and that's not too bad in my opinion. So yeah, I'm picking Joel Alvarez here pretty confidently. The next fight on the card is Deiveson Figueiredo taking on Montel Jackson. Deiveson Figueiredo coming into this fight with a record of 24 wins, 5 losses, 1 draw. Montel Jackson, on the other hand, 15 wins and 2 losses. This is a changing of the guard fight. Is Montel Jackson who they say he is? Is Deiveson Figueiredo done at the top of the bantamweight division? And you might be asking, who is they? Who do they say he is? Well, I'm talking about the bookies. Montel Jackson is a minus 305 favorite with the underdog price tag on Deiveson Figueiredo coming back at plus 255. So the bookies are expecting Montel Jackson to go out there and get a quick finish. You know, Montel Jackson's nickname is Quick. I don't know whether they're actually expecting him to get a quick finish, though. I don't think they are. I think they're expecting him to win via decision. Let's look at his now. So the under 2.5 rounds is plus 157. So that's actually pretty big odds there. So yeah, they're expecting Montel Jackson to win a decision here. Do I agree? That's always the tough part. I don't know whether I agree, boys. I don't think it's an easy fight for Montel Jackson. Like I said, I broke this fight down in depth on my other video, and you can go back to that and watch that video, you know, whenever you want, maybe after this, to get a full in-depth breakdown with fight footage and everything. But I kind of feel like Montel Jackson hasn't upgraded his wrestling. And if you go back and look at his career, where he lost to Brett Jones, how did he lose? Wrestling. He lost to Ricky Simone, how did he lose? Wrestling. Even in his very last fight against Daniel Marcos didn't really have any success outside of the wrestling. So I feel like the wrestling is still an issue. Is a Figueiredo a wrestler? I mean, he's an MMA fighter. I wouldn't say he's more of a striker, yes, but not really. I mean, most of his finishes are just, you know, guillotines these days, or you know, rear naked chokes, or whatever you want to call it, like submissions. But he's definitely capable of getting takedowns, right? I think he's going to get a couple of takedowns in this fight. Is he able to grapple Montel? To be honest, I think his jiu-jitsu is on a level above Montel. So I think he's going to take him down, and I think his jiu-jitsu is on a level above him. The issue is Figueiredo is getting old, man, and his reaction time and his durability is going especially. And in his last fight, he popped his knee so badly that he got finished from the knee pop, right? So his body's falling apart, his chin's deteriorating, he's moved up in weight class. I don't like it. He's 37 years old. I don't like it. 3-4 years ago, I would be betting Deiveson Figueiredo here because I feel like he's got the style to beat him. As I said, his takedowns are good enough to get a couple, and his jiu-jitsu is definitely better than Montel Jackson. So just that alone would make me play plus 255. But at this stage in their career, he might just get one-shotted. Now, I will say, the guy has fought the likes of Corey Sandhagen, Peter Yan, Marlon Vera, Cody Garbrandt, Rob Font. He hasn't been knocked out once in the bantamweight division. Knee injury is not a knockout, right? Yes, Corey Sandhagen was ground and pounding him, but that was ground and pound. Like, it wasn't a finish from the feet. And I feel like Montel Jackson's best attributes are on the feet, you know, 1-2s, long-range shots, etc., etc. So, yeah, it's interesting to me, boys, because I feel like Figgy has the skill sets to win. I just don't know whether I can trust him at 30 years old to win. You know, Montel Jackson at the end of the day is a very good fighter, man. Montel Jackson is an elite fighter. He's on an elite win streak. He hasn't lost in many years. I don't like the fact that Montel Jackson only fights once a year. Yes, he's getting 2 in this year, but 2024 he fought once, 2023 he fought once, 2022 he fought once. You have to go back to 2021, the last time he fought more than once in a year. That's not good, you know. That's not good. But I do think that, you know, he's on a great win streak. I mean, it's not the best fighters of all time. I mean, his win streak is Jesse Strader, JP Baez, Julio Arce, Ronnie Yaya, Damon Blackshear, and Daniel Marcos. So it's got a little bit better in the last 2, but it's not like the best win streak of all time. This is a big step up in competition, fighting a former champion at flyweight, Deiveson Figueiredo here. So I wouldn't be rushing to put Montel Jackson in your parlays. It goes back to what I was saying before as a professional gambler. Am I picking Montel? Yes. Would I bet him? No. Would I bet against him? Even maybe. Maybe. So that is literally what I've been trying to tell you guys. And look, I'm not just a predictor, an MMA analyst that's just going to throw out the same old junk that you can hear on any other YouTube channel. It's not a diss to any other YouTube channel, but I don't know if there's any other YouTube channels that is run by a professional sports bettor, someone who does this for full time, someone who makes their living from betting before they even made content. I don't think there's I don't know if there's any other one that does that. I think I might be the only one, and that's just factual, right? So they're not going to tell you the same things that I'm going to tell you because they haven't bet full-time for themselves, right? So they're going to come at it from a different angle. And I'm telling you now, boys, it's not about who you think's going to win. Despite popular belief, despite 99.9% of gamblers. But guess what? 99.9% of gamblers lose. We don't want to think like 99% of gamblers because they lose, right? Let me show you this now. Share this tab. Look at this one. I just typed this in on Google right now, boys. 99% of gamblers lose in the long run, right? Look at this. This is a article. This is a study that got done. 99% of gamblers lose in the long run. So we're not going to listen to 99% of the gamblers out there. We're not going to listen to 99% of the comments of the people talking because those guys are losers. At least 99% of them are, right? So the difference between the losers and how the winners think is that we bet for value only. Don't worry. Don't worry about who's going to win. Worry about where the value is. And am I saying there's value on Figgy? No, I don't know. What I am saying is unlikely that there's big value on Montel Jackson at minus 300. Even if he goes out there and wins, it doesn't mean there was value on him. It doesn't mean that long term, with that type of bet, you're going to win. So hopefully you understood what I was saying. Hopefully you followed along. If not, don't worry. I'm going to tell you a lot more in the upcoming videos anyway. I'm picking Montel Jackson to win this fight. In the next fight of the night, we've got the main event matchup. Charles Oliveira taking on Matheus Gamrot. Charles Oliveira coming into this fight, probably the most fights on the entire fight card at 35 wins and 11 losses. That's 46 fights for Charles Oliveira. Matheus Gamrot, on the other hand, an extensive record in his own right, 25 wins and only 3 losses. Only 3 men out of 28 have been able to defeat Matheus Gamrot. Currently, they have this fight as a dead pick'em. Matheus Gamrot minus 110, Charles Oliveira minus 110. No surprise. No surprise this fight is minus 110, guys, because it's a very close fight. It's a very, very close fight. Man, I went in depth on this fight on my other video. So like I said, if you want that video, if you want the in-depth prediction with fight footage, etc., go and watch that. I think I lean Charles Oliveira in this fight. And the reason I say I think is because it is a close fight, you know, and I'm not confident either way. But I lean Charles Oliveira here, and there's a few reasons why. I believe that Matheus Gamrot can only win by taking Charles Oliveira down multiple times, right? That's the only way he can win. Yes, he can land a crazy spinning back fist like he did against Scott Holtzman or something, but it's super unlikely, super low percentage, right? So we speak about things that are the most likely to happen or the more likely, not the tiny percentage outcomes. Even though we do acknowledge them, we don't make a whole breakdown on them, right? So I feel like Matheus Gamrot to win the fight has to get takedowns for 3, 4, 5 rounds. Maybe Charles gets tired out. Maybe he gets a submission, or maybe just wins via decision more likely, right? But it's not easy to do that to Charles because Charles has elite jiu-jitsu and elite scrambling. So I think that Charles could maybe scramble. I saw Charles scramble outside of Islam Makhachev's guard, right? Sorry, not guard. Top control. Islam Makhachev took him down. Charles Oliveira was able to grab a leg, create a scramble with a leg lock, get back up to his feet and get the body lock on Islam Makhachev. If he can do that against Islam, he can do that against Gamrot, right? Matheus Gamrot doesn't have the best control in his own right anyway. You know, he couldn't even control the likes of Dan Hooker, and Jalen Turner at times got back up to their feet. So I have no worry that Charles Oliveira is going to be able to get back up to his feet, at least early until he gets tired out, if he gets there. And when he gets back up to his feet, I think he does all the damage, man. He's got better striking, more power in his strikes, more dangerous with the knees up the middle, the elbows, the 1-2s, the hooks. And then in the jiu-jitsu, I think he's going to be the one with the closest submission attempts, at least early. So I feel like he's got the knockout upside, the submission upside, and just a more danger factor in general. And he's in his hometown. I lean Charles Oliveira in this one, but I really acknowledge that Matheus Gamrot is more in his prime than Charles. Charles Oliveira is 35 years old, Matheus Gamrot 34. But let me tell you something now. Fight years is different. Charles Oliveira is 40 years old in fight years. Charles Oliveira is a multi-millionaire. He can't step outside his house in Brazil because he's going to get surrounded by fans. He is been pushed into superstardom. He's super famous in Brazil. He's held the title before. He's coming off a loss. Like, there's not a lot to look at in Charles Oliveira's career and be excited about for this matchup. In terms of stylistics, yes, he can win, but in terms of the intangibles, as I like to say, it's not great. And there's only 3 ways you cap a fight: stylistically, statistically, and the intangibles. And the intangibles are on the side of Matheus Gamrot. Now, where they're not on the side is that it's not in his home country, so the crowd are going to be going crazy for Charles Oliveira, you know. Also, Matheus Gamrot has to fly all the way into Brazil, which is not an easy place to go and fight. I will say, though, Charles Oliveira was literally about a week ago in Las Vegas, cornering one of his fighters. Now he's gone all the way back to Brazil. He has to fly back to Brazil after being in Vegas, and that's not going to be good, you know, flying back and forth, back and forth. He was in Vegas for the Dana White's Contender Series, cornering his teammate, so that's not great, but also, what's not great is he was preparing for Rafael Fiziev, which was a pure striker. Now he's got to face Gamrot, who's a pure grappler, and that's evident by their matchup together. But also, Gamrot is coming in on short notice. So there's a lot of volatility, a lot of weird stuff for the matchup. I'm going to say Charles Oliveira gets it done just because I feel like he's got a bit more on his side in terms of the danger factor, the striking, the submissions, just a big moment upside. You know, Gamrot a lot of times loses rounds because he's winning the round and then he just gets hurt on the feet, like against Dan Hooker in round 1. He was winning that round clean and then he got hurt badly and he clearly lost the round. So it's like, I could easily see that happening now against Charles Oliveira. I could see that happening. So I'm going to pick Charles Oliveira in this one. It's not a confident pick, but it is a pick. So boys, as I said, the link to join my VIP, get all of my bets where we're up over 140 units this year, which is something almost not seen in sports betting. All tracked and verified. I'm not just saying these numbers. These are tracked on a third party. Then click the link in the bio, sublaunch.com/lucrativemma. You get access to all of my bets, all of my long shots, all of my props, and you get access to my staking system. I'll tell you exactly how much to put on each bet, specific to you, specific to your bankroll. Outside of that, let's get it, boys, and I'll see you in the next video. Good luck this weekend.